Good morning, my dear student. Today I am going to discuss current legal position on foreign sovereign and foreign states. This video lecture is in furtherance of the previous lecture. So, the development in the field of sovereign immunity in many jurisdictions have made a dent in the customary rule of absolute immunity. And the modern trend is toward restricted sovereign immunity from the judicial process to only in respect of governmental activities pertaining to public administration and not to other activities which are truly commercial. But some countries, mainly developing countries, still adhere to the rule of absolute immunity. The Soviet Union also till its dismemberment had held the view that restrictive immunity doctrine cannot apply to socialist states, since in the political theory of such states all governmental acts are sovereign, so that the distinction between acta jure imperi and acta jure gestionis has no meaning, even though it agreed to restrictive approach in many bilateral treaties. The problem of other socialist countries regarding state immunity in their transnational commercial transactions was overcome by the formation of trading corporations with distinct legal personality and has thus avoided any dispute of sovereign immunity. In some countries, rule of relative immunity has found legislative embodiment such as US, UK, Australia, Canada, or through judicial practice in some countries. The 1972 European Convention on State Immunity and the 1926 Brussels Convention for the unification of certain rules relating to the immunity of state-owned vessels also incorporated the restrictive immunity doctrine. Balance has now shifted in favor of restrictive immunity approach. What is the sovereign immunity and what is the status of sovereign immunity in India? On this point, India does not have any specific legislation on the subject, and the matter of sovereign immunity is governed by Section 86 and 87 of the Civil Procedure Code. Section 86(1) incorporates the general rule that no foreign state may be sued in any court except with the central government certified in writing by a secretary to that government. Such consent shall generally be withheld except when it appears to the central government that the foreign state has instituted a suit in the court against the person desiring to sue it, or by itself or another trades within the local limits of the jurisdiction of the court, or is in possession of immovable property situated within those limits and is to be sued with reference to such property or for money charged thereon, or has expressly or impliedly waived the privilege accorded to it by this section. It also provides for the non-execution of decree against the property of any foreign state without the consent of the central government in writing. These provisions are applicable to any ruler of a foreign state, any ambassador or envoy of a foreign state, any high commissioner of a commonwealth country, and such members of the staff of these persons, so specified by the central government in general or special order, as they apply in relation to foreign states. These persons cannot be arrested. These provisions give effect to absolute immunity approach, with exceptions and limitations stated in Section 84, subsection 2, which are very close to those mentioned in the UN Convention on Jurisdictional Immunities of States and their property. The suits against foreign states can be brought only with the consent of the central government, which is not always forthcoming, thereby denying any relief against the foreign state even for its non-public or commercial acts, or where the foreign sovereign has waived the immunity expressly or impliedly. However, the recent judicial pronouncements have eased the rigor of government consent to sue a foreign sovereign or state. In the case of Harbhajan Singh versus Union of India, the petitioner had done some work of building, maintenance and renovation of the Algerian embassy and the residence of the then Algerian ambassador in New Delhi in 1976. After the petitioner's failure to get his dues, he requested the Ministry of External Affairs to grant permission to sue the Algerian embassy. On the ministry's refusal to grant permission on political grounds, the petitioner filed a suit. The Government of India contended that it has discretion to refuse consent as required under Section 86 and the petitioner failed to make a case. The Supreme Court rejected this contention and held that it is not for the government to decide whether there was a prima facie case or not. The court also didn't accept the plea of political grounds for refusal to grant permission, as the claim of the petitioner was related to subsection C of 86(2), that is related to immovable property situated within the limits of India. The petitioner is liable to be sued in this country. The court directed the government to reconsider the matter, keeping in view the trend and development of international law, and further directed to explore the possibilities with Algerian authority of mutual settlement, either by arbitration or by other accepted legal norm. However, the Delhi High Court was more direct in ordering the central government to accord permission to the petitioner to sue the ambassador of the government of Afghanistan in Century 21 Private Limited versus Union of India, AIR 1987, Delhi High Court. The case related to the recovery of rent of the house occupied by ambassador of Afghanistan and the permission from the Ministry of External Affairs to sue the ambassador or his successor. The court took judicial cognizance of the distinction regarding the liability arising out of sovereign acts of foreign states, acta jure imperi, and liabilities arising out of commercial activities, that is acta jure justianis. The court followed the English court decision in Planmount Limited versus Republic of Zaire, wherein the contract for repairs of building was regarded an act of private or commercial nature. Seeking permission from the government before suing the foreign state is reminiscent of the American practice before the passing of the 1976 Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act. Nevertheless, the restrictive immunity rules find judicial support under Section 86(2) in certain cases. For example, in Raja Sir Harinder Singh versus Commissioner of Income Tax. In this case, the ruler of erstwhile Indian state was held liable to pay income tax for his personal income accrued in India. The Supreme Court observed that Section 86 does not impose an absolute prohibition against a ruler of a foreign state being sued in India. Even in the matters of trust created by a foreign sovereign, the plea of sovereign immunity was not accepted. The Supreme Court had the occasion to consider the relationship between 86(1) of the CPC before its amendment in 1976 and the rule of general international law in Mirza Akbar Ali Kasni versus United Arab Republic, and observed that rule stated therein is applicable to a foreign state also. So immunity to foreign states or sovereign is available only in suits and not to dispute decided by the Industrial Tribunal under the Industrial Disputes Act or arbitration proceedings. However, in the case of Messrs. Uttam Singh Duggal and Company Limited versus United States of America Agency for International Development, USAID, the appellant entered into a contract with the defendants to construct staff houses and apartments, and the contract contained a clause for arbitration by the contracting officer of the USAID mission in India. On the refusal of the defendants to refer the dispute to arbitration, the appellants approached the court, which rejected the defendants' contention that in view of arbitration clause, Section 86 will not be applicable. The court also rejected their contention that a building contract is not a commercial or trading activity, Hence, restrictive immunity is not applicable. The rule of absolute immunity in India is now confined to narrow regions. That is, immunity of a foreign sovereign is restricted to acta jure imperi as distinguished from acta jure gestionis. But what constitute acta jure imperi are left to the discretion of the courts in the absence of any legislation on the lines of British State Immunity Act or Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act of the United States. The courts in India take into account the nature of the purpose of the transaction as evident from the Uttam Singh Dougal case. Now let us see the position of diplomatic representative and consuls. Diplomatic representative and consuls of foreign state enjoy certain immunities and privileges in the receiving states. They enjoy these immunities under international law, which are codified in the Vienna Convention on the Diplomatic Relations 1961 and the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations in 1963. The basis of these immunities and privileges is that they are representatives of the foreign state and they have to perform special functions. Next is foreign public ships. Under general international law, foreign public ships, including the warships, enjoy immunity. Again I am repeating. Under general international law, foreign public ships, include the warships, enjoy immunity to a great measure from the territorial jurisdiction of another state, while in its territorial waters, ports or internal waters. Any private vessel called for public purposes, such as carrying of troops or war material, is considered a public ship and as such attracts sovereign immunity. The ships are immune from the legal process and cannot be the subject of execution of any degree or damages for collisions. The members of the crew, when on duty or official mission, are immune from local jurisdiction even while committing breach of the local law when they are ashore. When not on duty, they are not protected, though normally they are handed over to the authorities of the ship. These immunities, however, are available only if the foreign vessels enters the territory of a state lawfully. In case they violate the latter's territorial sovereignty or its laws, that will attract the international responsibility of the flag state. While in territorial sea, the warship must comply with the laws and regulations of the coastal state, failing which they may be required to leave the territorial sea. The special inviolability which public ships enjoy is stated to be based on the extraterritorial character of the ship, that is, the floating island theory, considering a public vessel as a part of the territory of the flag state and subject to its jurisdiction only. But in Chang Chi Cheng versus the King, the Privy Council held that the local court of Hong Kong has jurisdiction over a crime committed on board of Chinese armed vessel because the crime was committed in the territorial waters of Hong Kong. Lord Atkin stated that the correct view is that, according to international law, the court grants certain immunities or exemption to the ships and crew of another state